Okay, looks like we are live. What's up, everybody that was waiting? Sorry for the delay. Traffic was excellent, so I made it to the storm back very quickly. Excelente. So the reason I'm doing this little hangout is I actually, let me mute myself in the other. Ugh. There we go. Had to mute myself in my other ear. But I was going through, let me do a screen share, but let me do it so that no trolls can get the link to this hangout. You can just tap F11, which hides the URL at the top. Share my screen. Okay, now I'm sharing my screen. So the video that I was doing about, that's actually 79% done rendering. I figured, hey, why don't I just do this live, right? Because it's a lot more work involved trying to put the audio and video together and then render it, then upload it. So this is much easier because all I have to do is talk. But if I screw up, I can't edit it out. So, oh, hell, well, it's a whole lot easier. Right. So the reason I'm doing this is because if you're not used to the YouTube creator side of things, you can go into your community tab and look at your comments, and you get these held for review comments, which it says there's 65 of them, but they can't load. Now there was like 150 of them or so earlier today, and I went through them, but you can hit try again, and sometimes there it'll load. Now, usually what you get, and this just disappeared, is you get an option to see how, like, you can check this one, check that one, check this one. There was earlier this morning an option to select all and then either approve or remove all, anything that you have selected. But unfortunately, Google is just, YouTube is just stupid on this. And sometimes I find that the same thing with likely spam. So click on that tab. Couldn't load comments. Try again. Usually you have to do this one 5 times. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, 6 times this time. It should work. Yep. And of course the select all and add or allow or remove all is gone. So you can show more. And so what I wanted to do was first point out, I noticed a lot of people saying, hey, you're deleting my comments from your videos. Why are you doing that? And I'm not. It's just coming into these likely spam filters. Now, the only time that I'll delete comments is if I see it and someone's just being, totally, vicious, vulgar, expletives without anything constructive to say. But I do find a lot of interesting stuff in these likely spams. And whenever I can, I just approve the stuff. So I figured I'd read through a few of these, but before I do, let me just check the live chat. So make sure it's coming through loud and clear. The more I'll use YouTube. Okay, well, it looks like I'm coming through anyway. It looks like we've got a few people watching. Yes, Globebusters is still on at 3 o'clock Eastern, so that's in about 2 hours. But like I said, I was doing a video on this topic here, and I was like, what the hell? I'll just live stream it because it's easier. And you get a lot of really great arguments like this one first from Fins and Racks Outdoors. Flat tards are either one of two things. One, deluded, useful idiots that had their search for the truth. Oh, and by the way, he's shouting all of this. Search for the truth derailed in its infancy. That makes absolutely no sense. But we were all derailed as infants, for sure, about the whole globe Earth, spinning ball Earth that we supposedly live on. We were fooled as infants. And now that we're adults and we've been introduced to this topic and people have begun skeptically scrutinizing the hypothetical spherical Earth, we're coming up with consistent results that show the Earth has no curvature or axial rotation, so it couldn't be a spinning ball. Going back to the comment, 2, agent provocateurs or perpetrators of the COINTEL PSYOP that emerged in the rings of the Pentagon when the deep state needed a quick Band-Aid solution to stem the growing tide of wisdom and truth-seeking people who were keenly aware of their oh my goodness, he wrote a book. Okay, so I don't know if I'm going to read all that. Like, how would I ever find the time? And like, you just breeze through it. Terminal brain cancer, stupid. metaphysically stupid. Oh, and by the way, the reason why this one would have been filtered out is because stupid. Yeah, you can't put stupid on my comments in your video, on my video. Sorry. It's to filter out people like this. Stupid, stupidity, stupid. I mean, it's every other word. Stupid. If you counted all the stupids in here, there's another one, another one, another one, another one. See, this is why, and people ask me, like, why would you filter out people who say stupid? It's because of this. There's literally, it's every other word. If you can't make a sentence or an argument for or against the shape of the earth without using the word stupid, then your comment really doesn't belong on my channel. But you know what? I'll allow it just to show people how stupid you are. Right. So the bloody truth says Coriolis effect, question, question, question. Oh, and hopefully you guys are seeing my screen, right? Yeah, it looks like it. Okay. So the bloody truth says Coriolis effect, question, question, question. It either exists or it doesn't. You can't have both. We're taught about the Coriolis effect in school. Goodness, it's another book. We are shown a short video of two people standing at opposite sides of a merry-go-round. One person throws the ball straight to the other person, and the other person is already past the point of where they were. The ball cannot be caught because the merry-go-round keeps spinning, and the ball now free of the Earth's rotation, still goes straight. This teaches us that the Earth moves under objects that are detached from the Earth's surface. Simple and understandable. We are taught, and let's highlight this, the Earth moves under objects that are detached from the Earth's surface. So let's just keep that in mind. Simple and understandable. Yes, indeed it is. We're taught that it applies to everything. It would have to. It cannot be a selective effect. If we can catch a flight from east to west with the Earth's rotation, as we're taught, then we would never make it to our destination. Oh, great. So this guy's agreeing with me. No wonder he makes so much sense. Yeah. So the Coriolis effect definitely does exist, like in terms of the merry-go-round, but it is not the cause of rotational, the counter-rotation of typhoons and hurricanes north or south of the equator, because the Earth isn't spinning. The counter-rotation of cyclonic forces seems to have more to do with the sun perturbing and creating sort of a high-pressure system in its wake, causing the liquid-like atmosphere to rotate without getting too much into the physics of it. It causes the liquid-like atmosphere to rotate on either side of it in opposite rotational directions. So I'm not sure why. Oh, and see, this one here isn't even the one that is being filtered. It's this one here. Rob Armstrong, let's assume you're right. Oh, wait, you're not. So I'm not sure why I would filter that out, because there's nothing wrong with that comment, but I don't know, maybe I really don't know. But so, okay, oh shit, I just trashed it. Whoops, sorry, I'm totally meant to approve that. Okay, Felix Mendez. All what flat-tards have for their case is babbling, blathering, lies, mystifications, twisting, and misrepresenting of the facts. And I got to tell you, that first sentence right there screams proof of curvature and axial rotation of the Earth. I'm really just, I think I'm going to just put this whole flat Earth thing down and go back to thinking that I live on the side of a spinning ball. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so all flat-tards have to say is babbling, blathering, lies, mystifications, twisting, and misrepresenting of the facts. But there is only one thing they don't have any idea how to do, and that is to provide proof based on real-life observation and experimentation. That is what me and others in Australia did several nights in a row this past week, and which once again, for a billionth time, proves the ball Earth. We went out at the same time and measured the position of the Southern Cross in Santiago, Chile, and Sydney, Australia. Wait a minute, at the same time? How could you guys do that at the same time? It would be daytime in one of these and nighttime in the other. So you're making this up. You are a liar. Goodness gracious. So there's no point in even reading and reading further into this, because you're lying. And by the way, stellar observations or astronomical observations prove nothing in terms of the shape or nature of the Earth. In order for the Earth to be a sphere, it would have to have curvature. In order for it to be a spinning sphere, it would need to show signs of axial rotation, which exceeds the speed of sound. Near the equator, even in the tropics, even in the middle of the United States, you're supposedly spinning east faster than the speed of sound, and at the same time spinning, orbiting the sun at 66,000 miles per hour. So, until you can provide evidence for any sort of curvature, any sort of motion of the Earth, which there is no evidence for it, then I don't care what you see in the sky. It doesn't prove a ball Earth. Now, we can certainly take the astronomical observations which are interpreted to prove a globe Earth in order to disprove the globe Earth premise. Like, for example, the North Pole star Polaris being visible in the same spot from within the Northern Hemisphere all night, all year, from season to season. Even considering the precession of the equinoxes for the last 2,000 years since that was discovered, Polaris should have been, or whatever position was in the northern axis center, should have precessed a full 26 or 27 degrees. The Polaris is a very excellent indicator that the heliocentric model is wrong. Although you can't point to southern stars and make up lies about what you observed and say that that proves the Earth is a ball. Again, physical examination of the Earth itself shows no curvature or motion. So even this I will approve. I'm not going to look at your, well, let's look at the image. So you're trying to tell me that Sydney and Santiago were able to see the Southern Cross at the same time when it's going to be daytime in one of these areas and nighttime in the other? Or especially if you're like over here, all three of these locations can't be in nighttime at the same time. So your whole thing is a lie. As the Southern Cross is on the side of the observer here, you better watch this image. No, I'll just approve your comment and let people see how ridiculous your argument is. Okay, Netty Voyager, public communication. And see, this is weird. Like, how is this one filtered as spam? Right? So like this one here, Netty Voyager, is filtered as spam, and yet people have replied to it, and then more people have replied to it, even though this thing has apparently never been posted. Like, how does that work? So Netty Voyager says, Public Communications Office, attention NASA recovery information, headquarters site. Yeah, oh, that was from the cryptic threat call I got from a number that seemed to come from NASA. Oh, Will Asproth says, I am the embodiment of cancer. Fuck me. Well, and see, don't you love how that made it through, right? That made it through, but stuff like, let's just see, like this one here didn't. Morgile, first of all, thanks for your videos. All right, so anyway, going back to where we were at. The bloody truth got filtered out a lot. Will Asproth, your concept of science and mine differ greatly. Warning, there are paid NASA flat earth opposition people trolling this site. Do not let them drag you into their circle of arguments. They are paid by NASA to argue, distract, misinform, and generally harass people into leaving before they even watch the videos. Watch the videos and decide for yourself. You will learn and understand and see clearly for the first time in your life. Find the truth on your own, but hang on, it's a hell of a ride. Yeah, I totally agree with pretty much everything that you just said. There are people who are out there saying, well, we need to prove that there are, NASA paid shills out there. We need to prove it. Well, first of all, you're really never going to prove it unless you're like WikiLeaks or something, or like a really brilliant hacker. But we really don't need anything but the circumstantial evidence. I mean, if somebody's going to spend, apparently, allegedly, seemingly spend all of their time trolling Flat Earth, making arguments in the comment section, sniping hangouts, just being an all-around asshat, but always in the flat earth conversation, always just disagreeing with everything, won't listen to a sentence, won't use their brain to see whether or not a point is valid, won't use their critical thinking skills to figure out whether or not what we've been taught is correct. That, you know, they will just go with the deception. And some of those people may seem like paid trolls, but at least the regular people that are still within this strong delusion, they will concede to a valid point and go off and do their own research. Whereas a troll or a paid shill will not concede to a valid point, and they'll just change the subject and start arguing something else. And then, you know, it'll become a circular argument where a week or a day or a month or however long later, they'll start back arguing the original point where you've already proven them wrong. And so that is how you detect someone who is a shill or a troll, or who is just never going to do anything but argue against flat earth and spend apparently all of their time 24 hours a day doing it. So yeah, totally agree. Radio silence as expected. So for some reason, the Bloody Truths, all his stuff is getting blocked, and I'm not sure why. I'm just gonna, you know, approve all these. But could you imagine? Again, I've already done over 1,000 today because I did have the ability to check multiple and approve multiple. But I mean, how in the hell am I supposed to do this 675 times? Not, you know, not even mentioning reading through them, right? So and I'll just go ahead and blanket approve the Bloody Truth stuff because, well, what am I doing checking the boxes? It doesn't even do any good, because it seems like he has a good head on his shoulders, and for whatever reason he's being filtered out, I will approve it. Okay, so Ray Whitson. Ha 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 ha, you are funny, dude. NASA does not give a shit about crazy flat earth fanatics. I think they do. Otherwise, they wouldn't you know, be changing shit all the time once we point it out. And I don't know, I could give you a dozen examples if I had my head screwed on right today, but unfortunately I ran out of coffee yesterday, so no coffee for me today. The Bloody Truth replies, Ray Whitson, lol, keep trying, Ray, right, because don't you love how Ray here doesn't even attempt to provide any evidence for a spinning ball Earth. He just rolls back, you know, reverts back to the, you know, very common ad hominem attacks, just basically laughing at people, laughing at a situation that he doesn't understand. And hopefully people like him eventually will come around. But you really have to take some time to look into this topic and not just assume that it's wrong and revert to your programming that we're all familiar with, that has led everyone to think that they live on a spinning ball. So the Bloody Truth says, you know, he obviously is defending the flat earth. This is exactly, he sort of did a copy paste job here. Maybe that's why he was filtered out. I don't know. What a tangled web of lies we've been led to believe. It's all starting to unravel, Ray. Yeah, really. Check on that. Ray Whitson, he's just a massive troll and not a very good one. He posts the same text all over. I did notice that he was using some copy paste jobs, but hey, sometimes that is expedient, because what you'll find as a flat earther is you'll find all of the same arguments, maybe 10 or a dozen arguments being used against flat earth all the time. And if you just get you a little notepad file and type out your responses to those 10 or 12 arguments, then you can save yourself a lot of time and heartache trying to type out your ideas, you know, 1,000 times or whatever. So copy and paste, I don't necessarily see anything wrong with that, as long as the person isn't, you know, spamming porn links or spamming expletives or whatever. So I'll just go ahead. I don't even know why I keep using the checkboxes. So yes, check. The reason I'm reading these is because actually you do get into some pretty interesting stuff into these filtered comments that I've found. So Cest Fontamas says, Morgal, thanks of all. First of all, thanks for your videos. I follow you from Australia. And I just had a question regarding the vids. Why don't you use your own server? Why don't you make paid videos or even use other support like RooTube or similar? Thanks again for everything. I'll buy your book for sure. You can also make pre-sale fundraise the book. Also, I'm a graphic designer. I can help you on logo and different things. Cheers. They live. Oh, and he's from fefriends.com. That's if you guys aren't familiar, fefriends.com is a social media site that GeoShifter set up for flat earthers. So if you're not a member, check that out. That's actually a good little flat earth social media platform. Yeah, the question, why don't I use my own server? I don't have a server. I do the videos that I make, I do monetize like through AdSense on YouTube. Although that's basically, you know, dropped off heavily really over the last year, but especially over the last couple months. And then I just recently started using Patreon. So if you guys don't know that, you can support through Patreon to patreon.com/themorgile. Yeah. So I will approve that. And see, again, I have no idea why this would be filtered out. No idea. Okay, so Daryl Moore is replying to my response to Zach Bauer's top 5 reasons the Earth is a globe. Of course, my video was top 0 reasons the Earth is a globe because he didn't have any proof in his video. Daryl Moore says, I guess this is sort of finishing up onto something else that he was saying, so it's in the middle of something, in the middle of a book. Or an easy example, imagine you are driving in a car going at 180 miles an hour with the windows up and the AC off. You should be able to play catch with a crumpled ball of paper, or a fly would be able to maneuver around the atmosphere within the car easily. Or you'd be able to smoke a cigarette or even play with the smoke blowing circles and all that good stuff. Going at the same speed with all 4 windows down would render these tasks almost impossible. Well, so I guess, first of all, what he's arguing against, let's just read through it, hell. So that brings to your argument of the atmosphere moving and rotating at the same speed as the Earth in disrepute, and reinforces my question of a sealed atmosphere protecting us from space, seeing that scientific fact would have us believe that we're on a ball rotating faster than the speed of sound, 1,000 miles an hour, simultaneously rotating around the sun at 67,000 miles an hour while shooting through space at 50. Tesla the Great believed in density rather than gravity. I rest my case. Taking theory and propagating it as scientific fact without doing scientific protocol of experimentation and conclusion beyond a doubt to make it a scientific law is not science at all. Totally agree with that, by the way. It's wishful thinking. For example, theory of evolution, theory of relativity. Yeah, okay. And so just in terms of this first thing about, you know, in the car with the windows up and the AC off, you know, globe earthers often use that to argue against the fact that, well, an east to west flight, say from New York to LA, is often identical in duration to the return flight, which is impossible if all the destinations were racing about 800 miles an hour east. But globers, you know, use this analogy of like this closed system car with the windows rolled up to say that you can throw a ball back and forth, and it's, you know, they liken it to the same thing, but it's totally different things. First of all, if the car was spinning on its axis and going around a curve, right, then that would be a little bit different. The main premise, though, about the whole flights thing is whether or not the atmosphere is tattooed or velcroed to the face of the Earth, which is quite silly, especially when you see clouds going in opposite directions in time-lapse footage. But assuming that's the case, then as soon as an airplane takes off and heads west, it should always have a headwind as a rule. It would be fighting against the wind as a rule. Eastbound flights would always have a tailwind as a rule, and that just isn't the case. You know, flights have headwinds, tailwinds, crosswinds, regardless. It's just depending on the weather conditions at the time. But there is not this, you know, constant 1,000-mile-an-hour eastward, you know, velocity of the atmosphere. That doesn't exist. So, going on with the comment, yeah, Tesla is, you know, came out with some great stuff. Yeah, so agreeing with this guy for the most part, for example, theory of evolution, theory of relativity, the Michelson and Morley experiment is enough info for me to believe and lean towards flat Earth. For all truthful science disproves the big blue ball. Yeah, amen. And I say truthful science because there are scientific laws that do not hold true and are propagated to deceive. Yeah, totally agreed. I think the Copernican principle is like the big one, or the Big Bang theory is like another big one. But yeah, the science, which claims to be unbiased and in pursuit of truth, they have philosophical preferences or philosophical laws that they must adhere to, or they will not be taken seriously by their religious scientism colleagues. And so the Big Bang, or let's just say the Copernican principle, is a law that the Earth or any place in the universe, uh, let's just say the Earth, couldn't possibly be central, special, unique. It claims the universe is homogeneous, random, governed by basically chaos and gravity. And with that law of physics, then you sort of can't, it's sort of taboo to even consider a geocentric flat Earth scenario. And so that comment's absolutely right. It's fake science. It's philosophy masked as science, and taught as truth. But it is. It's just a big deception. And I don't think that it always was a deception. I think that people kicked around the idea of a heliocentric model a couple thousand years ago in ancient Greece. And of course, we had people like Ptolemy, who was a geocentrist, and other Greeks who were heliocentrists. But, it certainly wasn't agreed upon by the entire world by any means a couple thousand years ago. And it certainly wasn't agreed upon by the entire world even in, 1500 when the first globes were being made. It was globe Earth theory. And, there's circumstantial evidence for it that, I could see perhaps why people would go down that road, think that they figured out something really quite amazing, that the Earth is a ball just like the moon, and they've got all these little proofs for it, which their proofs are more confirmation bias and misunderstanding than anything. But I could see how that misunderstanding made its way, 500 years up into the 20th century, right up into the point where, well, in the mid 1800s, you did have Zetetic and Robotham, so you had that. So flat earthers were still around then in the 1800s, although, you get to the 20th century and you get a timeline of events that to me just seem not to be by chance. As a matter of fact, I'll pull up if I've still got it up. Yeah. So this is a little portion of the book I'm working on. This is pages 104 and 105. But this timeline here, you've got Operation High Jump in 1946, the Antarctic Treaty, and that ended in 47. The Antarctic Treaty about 12 years later. Then in 1960, LSD is introduced into the culture by the CIA and operatives like Tim Leary. 1963, Kennedy's assassinated. 1965, science fiction TV shows convinced the masses space travel is a practical eventuality. And two of those big ones would be Lost in Space and Star Trek, which came out in 1965 and 1966, respectively. In 1965, the U.S. also enters into the Vietnam War. 1969, in the middle of the Vietnam War, the Apollo missions were launched, and we get the first pictures of Earth from space, allegedly. 1972, the very end of 1972, the Apollo missions are completed, and in the middle of 1973, the U.S. exits the Vietnam War. So I know that these seem like a bunch of unrelated events, but if you take the premise that I was sort of describing, that 500 years ago, they started making globes and started convincing people that the Earth was a ball and all that. And, perhaps science really believed that with their limited technology for 500 years, or, not all of them, because we had like Robotham or Parallax or whatever, and others after him, and probably before him we've never heard of. But let's just give him the benefit of the doubt and say that this was not a deception up until Operation High Jump. which is where, you know, Admiral Byrd with the U.S. Navy took a couple fleets of Navy ships to the far south and traveled further south than anyone has before or since, as far as what's on record. And you know, if there was any doubt or if there was any question in the government mind, because again, this was before NASA and everything, they did have some precursor space program to NASA that was a huge flop. But, you know, if there was any question in their mind as to what the shape of the Earth was, it would have been here in Operation High Jump where they figured it out. Wait a minute. We keep going, and we're not winding up going back north when we go past the South Pole. So I think they figured it out here if they didn't already know it before. They may have had their suspicions, but I believe 1946 Operation High Jumped. Okay, now the world governments know the Earth is flat. And by the way, the Nazis had been down there before we even went. So, you know, maybe the Nazis knew the Earth was flat. Okay, so in 1946, they according to Admiral Byrd in the Navy, they found all different types of natural resources, coal, iron, you name it, uranium, probably oil. It's an entire untapped, pristine continent that used to be tropical, according to Byrd. Okay, so what you would expect over the next decade is you would expect to find, you know, corporate and government migrations, huge assets being sent to Antarctica in order to exploit and profit off of the natural resources there. But instead of that, we got the exact opposite. We got the Antarctic Treaty, which it doesn't ban people from going to Antarctica. It bans corporations and governments from setting up shop there and extracting resources from there. And if you do take a trip to the Antarctic, you're going to take basically a southern adventure from some far south point, whether it's the south of South America, south of Africa, New Zealand, or South Australia. You're going to go south, and when you get to your little destination there in the Antarctic, you're not allowed to free roam. You're stuck there, and this includes the people that have gone to the Antarctic with the military that I've spoken with, and people who have gone to the Antarctic for tourism, and people that have gone to the Antarctic for scientific research. In all of those cases, when you get to your destination, your little base camp or whatever in Antarctica, you're not able to travel from, you know, base camp to base camp to base camp. And I think that there's an obvious reason why for that. But the Antarctic Treaty essentially made it so that corporations couldn't set up shop there. And I think that the big picture will finally be revealed once we're able to do large-scale, free-roaming geodesic or geodetic surveying of the southernmost region. And until we're able to do that, then we really, we're really sort of in the dark. I put this in here in 1960, so a year after the Antarctic Treaty, because again, Operation High Jump put this stuff into the motion, and they had about, let's see, between 46 and the Apollo missions, they had about 2 decades. Now, during this first decade, so like throughout the 50s, they were actually, the CIA and other deep state, government agencies or whatever, were studying the effects of LSD on people, right? So they were doing case studies on LSD to figure out what it does. And finally, they introduced LSD into the sort of popular culture, which was indeed introduced into popular culture by the CIA and operatives or shills like Timothy Leary. They even had their sort of drone catchphrase like turn in, tune in, turn on, tune in, drop out. I wasn't from that era, sorry. But yeah, so LSD is introduced into the culture in 1960. And if you've got the entire, basically, generation of everyone from 18 to 35 jacked up on LSD, 9 years later, when the best stuff is going around, like Orange Sunshine, it doesn't seem that difficult to trick people into thinking that you sent Freemasonic people to the moon, right? So to me, it's no surprise that LSD was not only totally legal, but it was pushed by the mainstream, by the government themselves, by the CIA themselves, and Now, during this time, you had Kennedy assassinated, which was a huge, traumatic psyop on the people. Whether or not he was the angel everybody thinks he is, whether or not he was actually shot in the head as everybody thinks he is, whatever actually happened, the mainstream narrative is what is ingrained into the sort of public consciousness. And so that is a traumatic experience that everybody who was alive back then remembers exactly what they were doing and exactly, that what happened that day. They remember where they were, what they were doing, except for one person, and that was George H.W. Bush, who has other connections to possibly being responsible for, or links to being responsible for the death of Kennedy. But that's besides the point of this. The point that I'm making here is now that you've got 5 years from 1960 to 1965 to get a huge number, a huge number of people jacked up on LSD. And the thing about LSD is, like, it's not like pot or something where, you smoke some pot, you get high, you feel good, things are funny, and then an hour or two later, you eat a sandwich and get you something to drink and you feel fine. If you take LSD, you are totally jacked up, hallucinating, thinking of things you never thought of for at least 8 hours, at least. And after that trip, your mind has changed. It's very hard to explain, but it opens up your mind to thinking in different ways. Maybe one way to put it would be it sort of alters our neural pathways, or it alters the way that our brain cells communicate, like the synapses. So it is a mind-altering drug. It's what it's labeled as, because that's what it does. It's a mind-altering drug. Now, I'm not a proponent for hallucinogens, but I will say that, like, LSD trips and stuff can be good. They can be very, very, very bad and terrifying as well. But they can also make you more open to ideas or open to suggestions that you otherwise would never have even thought, or never would have even occurred to you. And so, during this time, 1960, they released LSD into the streets, and then 1965, you've got shows like Lost in Space and Star Trek, basically priming everybody, predictive programming everybody to prepare for space travel within their lifetime. And of course, the same year that Lost in Space comes out, the USA enters the Vietnam War. And so what that does is you get a lot of people fired up about, anti-war protesters. And, it's not just like it is today, where if you're like protesting something, usually that's like thumbing up a video or thumbing down a video, or even posting a video. Like these anti-Vietnam War protesters would literally like gather by the hundreds of thousands and march on capitals to try to enact change in the laws. Although it really didn't help much. It really seems to me as if that the Vietnam War was not only a way for the military-industrial complex to enrich itself by killing about 2 million innocent civilians during that war, or police conflict, whatever you want to say, as well as I think about 60,000 U.S. troops. I've got the numbers up here somewhere, but it was like 60,000 U.S. troops, 250,000 South Vietnamese troops, and something like 1 million North Vietnamese troops were dead. So just millions and millions of people are dead. But the bonus is, the plus side is the military-industrial complex got rich as shit, and their stocks went up like crazy because, when you're in war, bombs are needed, right? So the Vietnam War did accomplish that for the military-industrial complex, but it was also, I believe, a huge diversion from the Apollo missions, which were the actual plan starting in 1946. Now, you got to remember, these Illuminati guys, or government guys, whatever you want to call them, they don't have a 1 or 2 year plan. Some of us regular folk don't even have a 1 or 2 month plan, right? Like, I don't know what I'm going to be having for dinner next week from Tuesday, right? So anyway, the point is that the Apollo missions were launched in the middle of this war, when probably the smartest, most outspoken activists were busy protesting the war. And plus, you've got so many people jacked up or some way affected long term by LSD, watching the same government and military that's bombing Vietnam and killing people over here, pretending to go to the moon over here. It's the same people, just different departments, right? And to me, it's no coincidence that the final Apollo mission was completed right at the end of 1972. And a few short months later, in 73, the US exits the Vietnam War. Now, I hate to sound callous, but to me, it seems as if the Vietnam War was a distraction in order to allow for the Apollo missions to go unchecked. Honestly, I really do believe that. Um, and of course, they have multiple motives for everything. So they are going to make a whole bunch of money by bombing the crap out of the Vietnamese people. So it's not like it was just a diversion, but a diversion it really appears to be, because if they hadn't have been at war, I just really don't think that they would have been able to pull off the whole moon landing hoaxes. There were just, there were a lot of smart people around back then, just like there are today. And I really truly think that if it hadn't have been for that war, that, by the way, a lot of really good, smart people got drafted, forced into going and fighting and dying in. If it hadn't have been for that war, I really just don't think that the U.S. could have pulled off the Apollo forgeries. Now, of course, they claim that the Apollo missions were, part of this whole space race thing with Russia. But, it really seems to me that Russia and the United States have been allies ever since World War II. And we sort of just play this false dichotomy in order to keep our populations in fear. Or at least we do. I don't really get too much Russian journalism, but I hear that their journalism is a far cry better than ours. Our mainstream media, quote unquote, news is nothing more than a puppet, a mouthpiece for the federal government, pushing the mainstream narrative, blackballing anyone who has dissenting opinions or views. And so, yeah, it's really messed up. But yeah, so that's this little timeline. Hopefully that makes sense. I did write on it for several pages, and so I did dissect it a little bit more, but we'll get back into the comments. I just thought that was an interesting little side note. Let me make sure you guys are good in the chat. Yes, the island, I was probably trolling. I don't know. Dave Hinkle says the Earth is not a spinning globe. Indeed. There's a giant gang out there. Trolls are more times than not paid operatives for the heliocentric paradigm. I'm beginning to think more and more that there may be a lot of bots out there too. Like, fictitious sock puppet accounts where nobody's even typing into them. You just got AI that's sort of reading the comments and spitting out replies. I mean, that's really the only reason I think that some of these trolls could be everywhere at once, right? I mean, how can you police the entire internet 24 hours a day? And if you think they can't use bots, you're sadly mistaken. Like, I was reading an article recently where a lot of news articles are generated by artificial intelligence computers just gathering information from the internet. It's totally automated, totally autonomic. And sometimes you can tell when the articles are written by a robot because the grammar might be a little bit off, or they'll use words sort of in the wrong place. And you're like, maybe that's a typo, or maybe this is one of those sort of, robotic spit out articles. But yeah, they can definitely make articulate articles just strictly coming out of AI based on current events found in the internet land. And furthermore, even 10 or 15 years ago, I would play an online, video game called Team Fortress Classic. It was a mod of the original Half-Life, and you could play like 10 versus 10, and it would be live, people in all 20 positions. But once it started getting late at night, you would end up fighting bots. And the bots always sucked. They were programmed to do certain things, but they could play the video game. Bots can write articles. I'm sure that bots can respond to comments in YouTube, and that's why it seems like these guys are everywhere. But honestly, I think that flat Earth is much more widely accepted than we've been led to believe. And, you know, I think that you've got these sort of trolls and bots making it appear as if there's much more argument, or you know, much more validity to their side of the argument than ours. But in fact, I think that really is an illusion. But I mentioned this the other day. Like literally, I had my doctor mention flat Earth. I didn't bring it up, but he mentioned flat Earth, and yeah, he's an older guy. So that tells me something, you know, that this message is getting out there to people who are not necessarily, you know, plugged into YouTube 24 hours a day. So going on with Daryl Moore's comment, I'm sure that math could be provided to state how far a plane could fly on 100 gallons of fuel, for example. And I'm even more sure and can state for a fact that wormholes and time travel through wormholes, or the slowing down of time due to the speed of an object is moving out of gravitational fields, will never happen as the theory general relativity proposes, yet there is so-called scientifically proven math to back up this claim. Can we time travel? And if so, what craft do we have that travels at the speed of light? What say you? In 2017, NASA can't even figure out how to get past the Van Allen belt. Yeah, good points in there. Really, really good points in there. Let's see. Yeah, first of all, gravity. My biggest argument against gravity is that the Earth would need to be a ball in order to generate gravity, as they claim. And without curvature, the Earth can't be a ball. Therefore, there is no gravity. It's impossible. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like the E equals mc squared, you know, algorithm or equation or whatever that Einstein came up with to describe or equate energy to mass accelerated at the speed of light squared. But yeah, that's a big problem, because you're never, ever, ever in a billion years going to accelerate mass at the speed of light squared. And do you have any idea how fast that is? Never going to happen. And yet people think that it's, you know, solves all these problems. Hypothetically, it may solve some problems, but at the end of the day, you know, if the Earth isn't a ball, then it couldn't generate gravity. If it's not spinning, then, you know, the whole thing just falls apart very simply because the Earth is actually flat and stationary. We've just been led to believe the contrary. But yeah, there's no time travel. Oh, unless you listen to that guy, Andrew Basaglio, if I always get his name wrong, but he claims to be a time traveler. He claims to have grown up with Barack Obama, and he's been going back in time since he was a little kid. He was also going to be the next president after Obama, and he guaranteed that. But instead, we got the Trumpinator. And yeah, and he was actually at the Gettysburg Address. And yeah, so yeah, time travel is possible for Andrew Basaglio. But of course, he's just completely full of crap. I'm being facetious here, because I tried to watch some of his stuff. Time travel was something that's always sort of been interesting to me, but the guy was just totally shooting salad. He wouldn't making any sense and making all these claims. And of course, the hosts, you know, the hosts like Art Bell or I don't know, George Norrie or whoever they are like, really? So what was it like at the Gettysburg Address, right? But that, you know, they won't even humor somebody that says that the Earth isn't a spinning sphere. So it goes to show you what sort of psyops we got going on in the mainstream. No, we can't time travel. Oh, and you know, that's another thing about time travel. I always thought of time travel as sort of an impossibility in the heliocentric model, which is what I believed the majority of my life, simply because the Earth will never be in the same place twice, ever. The Earth is constantly traveling. So like if you say, starting now, count to 10, in that 10 seconds, and it wasn't 10 seconds, but in 10 seconds, the Earth has traveled, you know, east around the sun at 66,000 miles an hour for 10 seconds. So do the math on that. And the sun has traveled around the galactic center at a 60-degree angle to the Earth's path at nearly 500,000 miles an hour for 10 seconds. So do the math on that. While the galaxy flies at some other direction at over 1 million or 2 million miles an hour for 10 seconds. So the point is that the Earth would never be in the same place twice. And so if you traveled to right where I'm at 10 seconds in the past, well, I'd be in the middle of outer space, according to the heliocentric theory. Or if I traveled to 10 minutes in the future, I'd be at a spot waiting to get smacked by the Earth. So in the heliocentric theory, to me, I always thought time travel was totally impossible. But now that we know that the Earth is a stationary plane and it's not moving, then that gets you thinking about it again, because so you don't have all these issues with, if I travel 10 minutes into the future, then the Earth is going to be racing at me, from some bizarre angle and smack right into me. So you wouldn't want to do that. And knowing what we know, that gravity isn't a thing and electromagnetism surely is a thing, then perhaps if there is such a thing as time dilation, it could be an electromagnetic or a magnetic phenomenon as opposed to a gravitational phenomenon. And to me, perhaps if we can get enough real legitimate scientists to become flat Earth realists, things like time travel may become possible. Right, but see, they're going down the wrong road. They're going down the gravity road, the freaking garden path to nowhere road, right? Wormholes and Einstein Rosen bridges and black holes and bending space time to puncture, right? I mean, this is what their ideas, their theoretical ideas are for time travel and space travel. But frankly, when they realize that space doesn't exist, the Earth is motionless, and it's a static plane, like a statically charged plane, with an electromagnetic element to it, then perhaps one day such a thing as time travel could be possible. So for your information, fun fact, Article 6 of 14 of the Antarctic Treaty prohibits John Public from traversing past 60 degrees south latitude around the circumference of the, quote, globe. Yep, totally. You're not supposed to go further south than 60 degrees, and you're not allowed to bring or store fuel past 60 degrees south. This means that no one will be able to traverse along the prime meridian, for example, to actually prove the Earth is a globe. Yep, exactly. That's something that I've said a few times. I want to see complete circumpolar circumnavigation. That would get me off flat Earth, or at least get me scratching my head. If they could take a plane from the North Pole, travel straight down south the meridian, stay on that meridian the whole time, past the South Pole, keep going straight up the antimeridian, and then land back in the North Pole without turning. And you could probably do that without landing if you've got the capability to refuel midair. And frankly, at this point in time, somebody would have done this by now. They really would have. People circumnavigate the thing east to west all the time. But in terms of flying, total, complete circumpolar circumnavigation has never happened, never will, because it's an impossible thing. The Earth isn't a globe, so you can't go around a globe that doesn't exist. For some extremists, relativity is their Bible. Yep, agreed. Einstein is their God. Yeah, maybe. DeGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye are the high priests. Travel through the wormhole, time travel is their heaven. And NASA collects the tithes, and time traveling forward in time to a fictional solar system of Alpha Centauri to colonize a make-believe planet to support human life is their goal. Yeah, no, I totally follow with you, man. That's what the sort of thing they've been promising the public for, since there's been such a thing as space science fiction. Like even back in 1965, when they, Lost in Space and Star Trek came out, they had people convinced that they were going to the moon within 4 years, which they faked and claimed to have done. But then they said, by the time, by the year 2000, we'll have moon bases and Mars bases and elevators that go up to space and just all this stuff that they never did. And yet they're still promising us those sort of things, but they just keep kicking the can down the road. And Jaren's done a really great job exposing like Virgin Galactic, who have been promising low Earth orbit flights for like over a decade and haven't delivered on their promises. And they're collecting, what is it, like $50,000 or $250,000 a ticket or whatever, really, really expensive. And Yeah, they're not taking anybody, on their orbital orbital vacation. Isn't that funny? So of course, I'm going to go ahead and approve this comment, but this is the sort of stuff that gets filtered out for some reason. I would check this video out here, but I might get a copyright strike, so I'll just approve you. YouTube censored, this is Brolin Smokes a Lot. YouTube censored my video, a video explaining an experiment on how to prove the shape of the Earth. Please watch, it's only 2 minutes long. If someone faced east with a compass standing 10 miles away from the North Pole, if he flew in an airplane perfectly straight line from that point without turning right or left, he would slowly start facing southeast, and the equator of a globe, you could face east or west and travel in a straight line all the way around the globe, the southern hemisphere, or Australia. Someone can prove to us if Australia is upside down or not. Buddy needs an airplane and a compass, but he simply needs to face directly east. Keep in mind, east and west are 90 degrees away from the North Pole. Then this guy needs to go on an autopilot and travel in a straight line without turning left or right, and they should slowly travel northeast. On a flat Earth facing east and west, traveling in a straight line without turning right or left will always force you to end up slowly facing southeast or west. I need someone smart to explain this better than I can. Yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying, and I think that I haven't seen experiments, but I've heard and seen people in different chats and what are they called? I don't know, chat sessions or whatever, doing similar experiments only with their cars. And a lot of the newer cars have compasses, especially like the SUVs have compasses built right into the dashboard or whatever. And so if you're in an area that's relatively flat, no pun intended here, but like say you're in Nevada or someplace without a lot of mountain ranges, and you've got an SUV that can go off-road. Let's say you're 30 miles away from a city. You can see the cityscape that's due east of you, right? So what you'd want to do is you'd want to align your SUV directly towards that city, and make sure that you're coming, from the due west, so traveling due east. And from what I've gathered, as they go perfectly straight, ignoring the compass, not following the compass, but heading straight towards that cityscape, that compass does indeed slowly start to migrate away from due east, and that makes perfect sense on a flat Earth. In fact, the further north you are, the more obvious this declination or migrating away from due east should occur, because it should be a tighter arc around the the latitude lines in the north seem to be lower radius or smaller radius latitude lines than those in the far south. And so the further north you are, the easier or better this experiment would be. But again, you'd want to be someplace where there's no roads, but maybe in a desert where you can see a cityscape 20 miles away. Make sure you're aligned due east. You're facing due east, and then travel straight towards that cityscape. And according to what I've been told, yeah, that compass will start to slowly fall out of that perfectly east pointing direction. So yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. I don't think we necessarily need airplanes, and I would just urge anyone that has a decent SUV with a decent compass and, lives in an area like I described, to go and do that sort of experiment for yourself and film it and see what sort of results you find. So we'll approve that, obviously. I don't see why. I guess do they filter as spam anything that has a link in it? We'll just go ahead and watch this video if it's only 2 minutes. I don't know if y'all can hear it. Our globe Earth, when you have a compass, the end on a compass always faces to the north, never to the South Pole, even when you're in the southern hemisphere, but it should. Because on a sphere, there's a complete opposite direction. So for example, somebody in northern China, so the rotation of the Earth should be the same for that part of China or Australia. Yeah, I'm not going to try to keep reiterating this to you guys, but okay, so he's making some good points, and there's the link. I'll put it in the chat in case you guys want to watch it. That was that video link from Brolin Smokes a Lot, so I will approve that. Okay, here we go. So this is what I don't understand. So Daniel Plainview 3 months ago, his slips through because notice there's not a checkbox here. You people are absolute effing joke. And his goes through, but then the bloody truth gets blocked. Daniel Plainview, is this a joke? Coriolis effect? It either exists or it doesn't. You can't have both. Wow, and that's a copy and paste job again. Maybe he's saving time. I've done it before. Nothing against the bloody truth. Okay. So, Defender of the Good says, now all the Ennas saying the Earth is the only planet like this with life can shut the heck up. So, saying the Earth is the only planet like this with life can shut up. Oh, and NASA probably been new about this and acting like, hang on, I gotta zoom in on this a little bit. It's like hard to read for some reason. Okay. It's new info. Wait a minute. Oh, and NASA probably been known about this and acting like it's new info since a huge increase of UFOs have been happening. Also, this planet is doomed due to all the kamikaze leader playing toy soldiers with our lives, the ones who have nukes. So basically saying if I lose the war, I'm killing everyone, including my own country. Same thing probably happened to Mars. War destroyed it, so we were brought here. Now the search for new planets is on cause because this one is doomed. The signs are all there. Humans are the odd man out there. No scales or fur like animals. The only things that was on Earth before aliens, aka past us, destroyed the dinosaurs to bring us here from the dying Mars. Okay, so that's a lot in there. I sort of agree that we've seen a lot of UFOs here lately. It's increased since Flat Earth has come out because that's a psyop. I think most UFOs are probably built by the government and operated by the military. If you believe people's stories like Bob Lazar, he claims to have worked with, on Area 51 or whatever for some clandestine group. And he claimed that they had retrieved extraterrestrial crafts and back engineered them. And he took people and showed them test flights. And now let's just dissect the term extraterrestrial a little bit, because to me, it's still a possibility to have extraterrestrials. And whether they're demons or whether they're biological organisms or something different, I would say in a flat Earth reality, they are technically, theoretically possible. Whereas in the heliocentric hypothesis, even if there was such a thing as extraterrestrials, they'd never find us. And even if they could find us, they'd never be able to get here. Because, even the closest star, according to the heliocentric model, is something like 4 light years away. So that means if you could travel at light speed, it would take you 4 years to get there. We can't even approach a fraction of a percent of light speed. And so it would take us, generations to get there. And so, but in terms of extraterrestrials, imagine if, we know the Earth is flat and stationary. We really don't know what's beyond the extremities, or we'll just say Antarctica, just for argument's sake. We don't know what's past that. So by definition, it is an infinite plane. Infinite or infinite, which means non-definable. We don't know how far the physical plane stretches past the Earth realm. And there very well could be other Earth-like realms on the physical plane. Maybe 1,000 miles away, maybe 100,000 miles away, but certainly within traveling distance. We're not talking light years here. And so if they did actually recover some extraterrestrial crafts, they wouldn't have been coming from Alpha Centauri. they wouldn't have been coming from some other galaxy or some other star system. They would have been coming from across the plane, just assuming for argument's sake that Bob Lazar was telling the truth. If they were coming from somewhere else on the plane, from another Earth realm, then I could definitely see why the government would want to cover it up. Because obviously, for them to make it here, they've got to be pretty smart technologically. And so the first questions that we'd have if they, put the ET on the podium and gave him a translating device, we would want to ask him where he came from. And if he was being honest, so we'll say hypothetically that it's not a demon. If he's being honest, he'd say, well, I came from south. I'm from down south, right? That's what he would have to say if he was being honest. And then, he would explain that his world is much like ours, blah, 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 blah. So, I guess my point is I was always very into the prospect of extraterrestrials and aliens. One of my favorite movies growing up was E.T. I saw the Star Wars 2, I think, when I was 2 in the theater. So yeah, I've been a big, fan of NASA and Star Wars and extraterrestrials and all of that my whole life. And there's a lot of people who claim that the flat Earth is basically a Truman Show enclosed dome structure. And I just haven't seen any evidence for that. I mean, I suppose it could be, but I just haven't seen any evidence for that. And I think that's really the point of the whole Antarctic Treaty, is to keep us guessing, right? But yeah, assuming that there are other life forms out there on the physical plane, and there are other, Earth-like realms on the physical plane, we could have all sorts of extraterrestrial neighbors. I mean, what kind of future would that hold? Would they be warmongering assholes like our governments? Maybe that's why we're not allowed out, because our governments represent us, and these extraterrestrials see us basically killing each other over worthless pieces of paper, killing people over ideologies, over worthless things like oil. I mean, just look at all the just atrocious things that have happened throughout human history. Would you necessarily want a bunch like that coming over to your world, if you follow what I'm saying? Or let's just say hypothetically that there's a group of ETs somewhere else on the plane in another Earth-like realm who are worse than us. Let's say they're worse than George W. Bush, which is saying a lot. Would we really want them in our airspace? Well, maybe some of them would. Maybe some of them would. But the point I'm trying to make is that a lot of conspiracy theory-minded people are very into aliens. And when you start talking flat Earth, a lot of people make the argument that aliens couldn't possibly exist because the Earth is flat. And to a degree, that's true. I totally agree that, nothing's coming from other planets, because those are just lights in the skies, right? But in terms of other life forms living somewhere else on the physical plane, that's totally possible. And I think there's some circumstantial evidence for this as well. The rate at which new species are discovered in terms of insects and ocean life, it is estimated that we have only documented and classified about 10% of the species of insects on the world. That's because they're discovering new ones all the time, and sea life as well. Now, could that be because we're just now getting better at looking, or could it be that these creatures are migrating here from another, Earth-like realm in the physical plane? Excuse me. Right. So this whole thing with planets and dinosaurs, I don't believe any of that. Ancient alien theory has become very popular. Lots of people are convinced that, like, Zecharia Sitchin decoded the Sanskrit or Sumerian tablets, basically saying that the Anunnaki, or those who from the heavens came, basically grew people in clay jars in order to mine for gold ore so that they could fix their planet's atmosphere, which needed the gold. Now, maybe they needed gold for their plane. Maybe they were being greedy, or maybe he misinterpreted it, or maybe it was, folklore. I don't know. It really is such an interesting thing. It's such an interesting thing that you can't just put it down and say, okay, the Earth is flat, therefore no aliens, therefore no extraterrestrials, therefore no Anunnaki. I mean, who's to say that in ancient Sumeria, some beings, we'll call them extraterrestrial beings, came down and said that they came from the stars, and they would have appeared to come from a flying machine, and took control of the race. I see that as totally possible. I don't think that's what happened, but I think it's possible. So anyway, we'll get off that. We'll approve that. And let me do a quick time check here, because well, we still got time. We're gonna obviously do the glow busters in about 45 minutes. So anyway, I'm gonna delete this because I'm sorry, I'm just not gonna allow somebody to call my subscribers and viewers of my videos absolute effing joke. Okay, Paul Gross says, hey, the more file, relax, you don't need to get upset at the NASA. They probably just wanted to see if you would respond. I would have stayed calm. We don't care about NASA. We know they are frogs. Let the Lord Jesus Christ handle them. And trust me, sir, you better get right with Christ because he's coming very soon. Pray that you will love your work. Well, okay. Just trying to distill that a little bit. Yeah. Oh, staying calm. Yeah, I'm not worried. Honestly, what are they going to do? I mean, are they going to just prank call me? Are they going to kill me? Ooh, I've been dead before. It's not that bad, actually. Furthermore, we're all going to die someday. And when it happens, I'd rather have it be quick and painless. So there you go. Not that I would ever do anything to hurt myself. It's just I'm not afraid of. I haven't been afraid of dying since I died when I was very young, choked on a strawberry. I'm a little girl when it comes to like people that I care about dying, of course, or even my pets. Like when my cat died a few years ago, I cried for days. But in terms of getting right with Christ, that is such a difficult thing to do because what do we have to go by? Most people will go by the King James Version Bible, which does have, I believe it has preserved some of the teachings and parables and stories of Christ. But I think that there's a lot of misrepresentation in there as well, a lot of added narrative, tons of mistranslations, tons of poor translations, and tons of things in the English text that make absolutely no sense, but make perfect sense in the original text. And I could give you examples, but we're not going to go there right now. The point is that getting a relationship with Christ really isn't that easy. People think that they may find a relationship with Christ by reading the Bible, and they may, but the the Gospel of Thomas is something that I recently started looking into, and it just contains no narrative, no virgin birth story, none of that. It's strictly parables and teachings verbatim from Christ. And some of them are very short, some of them are longer than others, but they're all pretty much just relatively short parables. And really, powerful messages that he was teaching, but you really have to think about them, and you have to think about them in different contexts. And, Christ never told his disciples to worship him, ever. He seemed to be, from what his disciples talked about him, he seemed to be humble, of course, but he would sometimes have a temper. And, even Thomas, who knew him, doubted, they called him Doubting Thomas. He still had trouble with faith. And so for us, 2,000 years later, to have faith in Christ to me is an amazing thing, because even with all of the misfortunes with the King James Bible and everything, we're learning more and more about true Christianity and paganism, which is masked as Christianity in the form of the Roman Catholic Church. And that paganism masked as Christianity has even now bled into the Orthodox and Protestant sort of denominations. It really has. Everything from celebrating Easter and Christmas on the vernal equinox and the vernal equinox and the winter solstice, those are pagan ritual dates. And even dyeing the eggs is a pagan ritual thing in worship or homage to Ishtar, or other known as Isis. And so, religion, I think, common modern religion, gets us further from Christ. I really do. Because it's all about somebody's opinion of the Bible and how they interpret this part of the Bible and how they interpret that part of the Bible, to the point to where, like, you've got the Holy Roman Empire doing things like the Crusades and the Inquisitions, murdering people, innocent people, for theological differences or for accusations of witchcraft. The church that represents Christ would never murder anyone. And so I know I'm sort of droning on here, but I just think that it's very difficult. What does that mean to have a relationship with Christ? The way that he taught, he said that we should pray, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Pray to God, keep it short. He already knows what your needs are before you ask them. And do right by others, follow the commandments, spread the good news that we don't have to spend eternity writhing in hell. And I even have some disagreements with the whole crucifixion thing. I mean, that was a terrible, terrible thing that happened. I mean, just awful. I'm sure you've all seen the Mel Gibson movie reenactment of it. That was pretty, pretty right on the money. I mean, they tore the guy to shreds and then hung him up to die. And, that's a sad thing. Yet we walk around with crosses on our neck. I mean, I don't, but people do. To me, that wasn't the fulfillment. That wasn't his fulfillment. The resurrection was. And so, I don't know. I guess there is no sort of trinket way to represent a resurrection, but his death, to me, hanging a cross around your neck is sort of dwelling on his death. But, according to the scripture, he rose again 3 days later. So, wow, how do we get off on that tangent? Paul Gross, I'll approve that. Mike Singer, the biggest problem with flat Earth is the fact that the sun never sets in the Antarctic during the winter, which is only possible on a globe Earth. Well, we know for sure that you get the 24-hour sun during the northern summer in the north. However, the only one time lapse that I've ever seen of the same phenomenon allegedly in the south was forged. It was like CGI, maybe some real, footage, but the sun looked fake. And yeah, even if so first of all, I will say I strongly disagree. I do not believe that the entire Antarctic is lit 24 hours by a high sun during its respective summer. I don't think that's true. What seems to be more likely is that they may have a lingering twilight, during their summer due to the magnetic field of the Earth, or they could have very long nights and very long, 12-hour days, very long 12-hour night in the in the Antarctic during their respective summer. But I've never been to Antarctica to do this experiment, and Mike Singer, I'm sure that you have not either. And furthermore, I always revert back to this. The Earth does not have curvature, therefore it could not be a globe. So whatever you're seeing in the sky doesn't prove a globe Earth. The only thing that could possibly prove a globe Earth is inverse square curvature descending away from you in all directions. That's what would prove a globe Earth. Unfortunately, all of the proof proves and shows conclusively that the Earth is a plane. And so whatever optical illusion is causing the Antarctic midnight sun or whatever that you claim occurs, which I don't believe occurs, it could be, you know, any number of things causing that. Light is not a physical thing. Light can travel or propagate through magnetic flux lines for distances. Who knows? But the point is, if the Earth doesn't have curvature, then it's not a globe, damn it. And your argument is null and void. First, you must prove curvature, axial rotation, and orbital motion, and then we will talk about the stars. Okay, real ice pick 1. Wouldn't surprise me if this is some anti-flat Earth YouTube doing. Zach Hubbard, Cool Hard Logic, John B. Wells. They seem the type to stoop so low. Could be a real nasty affiliate, or actually them. For those of you who have never had the man come after you or know anyone else close to you who has, it's more common than you think. From personal experience, be minding your business one day and then the next be arrested for the wrong reason, mysteriously injured after being unconscious, and then blackballed for the remainder of your time in that city. You don't have to be some superstar. You just have to say the right thing at the right time and be heard by the right person, and you're a target for whatever reason they need you a target. So keep doing your thing and be safe. And again, this was when I got that phone call from NASA where they said they don't approve of the book. Yeah, I'm not worried about them, but yeah, they can do things to mess you up, man. The law in this country is totally against the individual freedom, and is totally for basically federal institutionalized imprisonment of people who, you know, have the wrong type of salad in their pocket, or yeah, there's people who have been framed for things because they hold, you know, dissenting opinions on different things. Like one example may be Kent Hovind, who did a good job debunking, you know, evolution, and he's a proponent for a young Earth sort of situation. Although he's still an avid ball earther, you know. Yeah, for those of you who had it. So yeah, I've had the man come after me too before. Yeah, I do be safe. I do. Thanks, real ice pick 1. Okay, KDAM or KDABMD. I'm not going to call you a liar, but you have presented no evidence that NASA really did call you or that they really did say what you claim. This could be a publicity stunt on your part to promote your book. After all, you have vested interest in getting people to read it. What you have claimed here would be easy to fake. It's also quite possible that somebody probably quite low down in the NASA food chain saw your promotional video and thought it would be fun to call you. I'd be surprised if NASA employees and contractors didn't occasionally watch Flat Earth YouTube videos just for the lulz. Perhaps you could explain how NASA got your number. Have you called them before? Okay. Well, first of all, I wouldn't lie about that to promote my book. Like, I'm an honest person, dude. And the fact that your first assumption is that I'm making this up, I'm lying about this, is more of more of a reflection on you than it is on me. I was just really surprised to get that phone call, and I wished I would have recorded it, but I did, you know, capture it on caller ID. Yes, it would have been easy to fake, although I didn't. I don't do shit like that. I have no reason to fake things. I've got enough. My credibility and my honesty is the only thing that I've got going for me. And if I betray that even a little bit, then you know, it won't sit. I can't behave like that. I'm not going to make something up just for the lulz or whatever. Then you say it's quite possible that NASA did call me. So which is it? I don't know. You're talking out of both sides of your mouth, but I'll go ahead and approve it. KM Abed. Okay. M-Day says, I wish NASA would call me. I would tell them what they were invited to kick, lick, and suck, all in the same sentence and in English, and they would not have to press 1 to get English. Yeah. They didn't let me talk. I started talking to them and they immediately hung up. So I don't know. It was weird. The number that showed up on the caller ID, I did, did a reverse number search on Google and found that it was indeed a NASA number. But then I was told that people can, with certain software programs or whatever, they can call you and make it look like they called from some other number. So yeah, who knows? But yeah, I don't wish they'd call me, but if they do, I hope I can get it on, I can get it recorded next time. Oh, and to answer the other guy's question, how did they get my number? I put my number out on all sorts of videos that I do, so it's not like it would have been rocket science. Right. How much food stamp money went to promote and writing a book? Dude, get a job. How much food stamp money went to promote and writing a book? I don't understand that question. Because as far as I know, food stamps can only be bought for like food. And so I don't think that like you could go to a promotional company or an agent and say, hey, buddy, I got a flat earth book I'm doing. Here's my food stamps. You with me or not? You know what I mean? That's not going to happen. Dude, I have a job. I've got multiple jobs. One of them includes doing YouTube videos. One of them includes working from home, offering professional services to business clients. And one of them is through a regular temp agency. So how many more jobs do you want me to have? Ugh. I'm going to delete that because it doesn't add anything but just ignorant commentary to this video. Deleted. Okay, proof there is a flat earth dome. Okay. We shall see. We shall see. And you guys can't hear this either, I don't think. Oh, you're talking about the stupid Go Fast rocket? Oh man, so I've got to go through this again. I did a video on this, but I'll just go through this again. The Go Fast rocket, you can find the video on YouTube. It gets up to a certain altitude and it's spinning super, super fast. And what happens is at a certain point, at a certain altitude, its de-spin mechanism kicks in. And basically, I described it better in a video, but it's basically like an object with some mass to it, like a weight, sort of like a yo-yo with a string wrapped around it. And once they release this de-spin mechanism within the nose cone of the rocket, its inertia causes the rocket to stabilize, so it stops spinning. And so the first noise that you hear when that rocket goes, it goes like pew, and it stops spinning. That's the de-spinning mechanism kicking in. And then about 10 seconds later, excuse me, pardon me, about 10 seconds later, you hear dunk, and you can clearly see the primary stage rocket separate from the top portion of the rocket. It didn't hit a dome. Its de-spinning mechanism kicked in, and then it separated its primary boost rocket from the top portion of the rocket, and that's where you get that dung clinging sound. But it did not hit a dome. Please, people, stop saying that. I mean, it really, it's making flat earthers look silly, you guys. Just look at the rocket. Look at the schematics of the rocket. It has a little de-spin mechanism in there. It stops spinning, it makes a sound, and then it decouples from its primary rocket. And that's what you think you hear it hitting the glass dome, but it is not. I mean, the rocket even continues ascending after that point. I mean, and if it hit a glass dome doing however 10,000 miles an hour or whatever, don't you think that rocket would have been just a little bit affected? No, I mean, come on, give me a break, dude. To all the round earthers, 7.9 inches squared of curvature for every mile cannot be seen in any experiment conducted. True that. And then this guy, just the one bloke, Jim Miller, who told you that? Who told you that? Well, Jim Miller, nobody has to tell us that. We can go out and measure for it ourselves. There isn't any curvature. Who told you that there was, and why did you believe them? I think that's the question we should really be asking. Busy Mountain says, no worries, you have friends in high places. I've been following Trump's moves that are now in harmony with anything in space or NASA related. I'm wondering if Trump is opening up a can of worms on purpose with this NASA request. I have several sources that indicate Trump does not believe in the moon landing or even that the Earth is round. Do with it what you want, but it looks like he is draining the swamp on the elite with this. Now, this was from 3 months ago, so it's a bit dated again, but I don't know. Any reservations I reserved the benefit of the doubt for Donald Trump to see how he would do, to see how he would perform. And unfortunately, I can't get behind him because he's just continuing the never-ending war, just like we would have been doing if Obama would have continued or if Hillary would have been elected. None of that's going to change because of the president. The corporate military-industrial complex interests are too powerful, and the president, regardless of how well-intentioned he may or may not be, the president is just one man, and he doesn't have the power to change this huge beast system that is so intricate and worldwide. He can make little dents in it here and there, but until he gets rid of the Federal Reserve, the IRS, the CIA, NASA, LIGO, for starters, then he's just another puppet in a suit. He's an empty suit, lame duck. Oh, and he'll keep bombing people, and that's great, right? That's good for the economy, is bombing people. So, yeah, totally can't get behind that. I don't think he's a flat earther either. Maybe he is, but it just seems like if he knew the Earth was flat, he would be going after NASA. You know, the last thing somebody like him claims to like is wasting money. And I think spending $20 billion a year to make fake videos of traveling through space is a big, fat waste of money. So, astronaut Richard Cohen telling Trump the Earth is inside of a big sphere. Different astronaut Ron Garan telling Trump not to go crazy draining the swamp, and no, the Earth is not flat. I'll put these links in the live chat in case you guys want to take a look. I don't have time to right now. I'm fixing to pop over to Glowbusters here in just a minute, but we still have a few minutes yet. So I just wanted to show this to you guys because a lot of people think that I'm removing their comments when literally it's YouTube who's filtering their comments. Okay, so here's one from Terry Winter. He says this is 24 hours of daylight in the southern Arctic. Where's the clock? Okay, cut. Oh, this is the same one. This is the forged. Yeah, this is a faked animation. This is not real. You're trying to tell me that sun is a real? Really? Okay. Yeah, and I live in fucking Teletubbies land. Get out of here with that crap. That's the same exact video that I was talking about earlier. So, wow, I'm so glad I watched that again for the umpteenth time, which is the only one you'll ever find of the alleged 24-hour sun in the Antarctic. Okay, so yes, we will approve these. So let me go back to held for review. Couldn't load comments. Try again. Okay. So, and it's still, for some reason today, I lost the ability to select multiple and approve multiple. So it's almost impossible. And look, this didn't even go down after I just did all those. Couldn't load comments. Try again. Oh, look, it's back. It's back. There's the approve and remove multiple. It is back. So let's see if I can do that real quick. 6 times a charm, 7 times a charm. There we go. What I mean, YouTube has always been such a great platform that works so well, and then you get into the content creator comments side, and it's like, what did they just like not even spend any time trying to make this work at all? It's so clunky. But now, what I have the ability to do is I can sort of scan through these and figure out which ones I want to approve and which ones I want to remove. But really, who has time to read all this stuff? I wish they wouldn't filter all this crap out. So just to show you, now I can, and I'm just going to approve all of these. You can multiply select all, approve, and it's lightning fast. Let me tell you, I actually have cable internet now. It's better than my old DSL was, and it just takes it forever to do this crap for some reason. So let's go back to held for review, see if my approve thing is gone. Try again. See, that thing is gone. Why is that thing gone? That really makes me mad. Oh goodness, try again, try again, try again, try again, try again, try again, try again. There we go. This video is absolute proof that the earth is curved. Try to debunk it. I await your comment in the section, flat tards. Well, this was 3 months ago, and so I'm just now getting it in my likely spam filter. Let's see this proof of the earth being curved. That video is unavailable. Well, isn't that convenient? I'm not going to approve anything calling people flat tards. Ashton Kutcher testified today about what he actually witnessed. What is this about? Well, that sounds interesting. Excuse me. Okay. Yeah, so I guess, guys, I'm going to wrap this one up here. I actually did a video on this, which it should be done rendering now. I'll upload that so you can sort of get the beginning of it. I will be popping over to Globebusters Live here in a few. We've got an extra special guest today. Her name is Dream. Oh, now I forgot it. Hang on. Oh, it seems so silly now. She has the same last name as a like famous photographer or something. I put it on Facebook. Her name is Dream Rockwell. So I need to ask her if she's any relation to Norman Rockwell. Wasn't he like a painter or something? Yeah, anyway, so definitely you guys tune into that. That's at 3 o'clock, which is in a mere 20 minutes. So let me just pop over to the live chat. Oh, and let me hit enter here so you guys can get that link. Oh, it's not going to let me. Oh, it's too many characters. So just that last link that I was mentioning. Oh, it's way too many characters. Crap. Hang on. Dang, still 54 more. Ah, 14 more letters. Maybe I'll have to do these as 2 separate links. There we go. I'm getting smarter and smarter. There's one. There's the other. Those are things regarding Trump and his flat Earth stuff or whatever. So with that, wow, 160 people. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. It's always fun to go through the comments, and just wanted to show y'all that I'm not deleting people's comments. YouTube filters them out and makes it almost impossible for us to sort through them and approve them. Especially when, like this morning, I had over 3,000, but my multi-select button was working then. And so one by one, you'll just never, ever get through them all. Globebusters goes live at 3 o'clock Eastern, so that's in about 15, 20 minutes or so. Other than that, I'm going to wrap this up, guys. God bless you all. Oh, hey, Kristen Wolf, the Glober Trolls tactic is to act as if they got their globe in the bag. Yeah. Totally agreed. Yep. Peace out, guys. We will catch you on the flip. Thanks so much. Globe Exit hashtag and Globebusters Live is going to be an awesome show. You guys will love Dream, her last name. You will Rockwell. You will love Dream Rockwell. So see you guys soon. I'm going to end this now. God bless you guys. Spread the word, spread the world, and peace out, everybody. Figure out how to hang the darn thing up. One that is being filtered, it's this one here. Rob Armstrong, let's assume you're right. Oh, wait, you're not. So I'm not sure why I would filter that out, because there's nothing wrong with that comment, but I don't know, maybe I really don't know. But so, okay, oh shit, I just trashed it. Whoops, sorry, I'm totally meant to approve that. Okay, Felix Mendez. All what flat-tards have for their case is babbling, blathering, lies, mystifications, twisting, and misrepresenting of the facts. And I got to tell you, that first sentence right there screams proof of curvature and axial rotation of the Earth. I'm really just, I think I'm going to just put this whole flat Earth thing down and go back to thinking I live on the side of a spinning ball. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so all flat-tards have to say is babbling, blathering, lies, mystifications, twisting, and misrepresenting of the facts. But there is only one thing they don't have any idea how to do, and that is to provide proof based on real-life observation and experimentation. That is what me and others in Australia did several nights in a row this past week, and which once again, for a billionth time, proves the ball Earth. We went out at the same time and measured the position of the Southern Cross in Santiago, Chile, and Sydney, Australia. Wait a minute, at the same time? How could you guys do that at the same time? It would be daytime in one of these and nighttime in the other. So you're making this up. You are a liar. Goodness gracious. So there's no point in even reading and reading further into this, because you're lying. And by the way, stellar observations or astronomical observations prove nothing in terms of the shape or nature of the Earth. In order for the Earth to be a sphere, it would have to. Okay, looks like we are live. What's up, everybody that was waiting? Sorry for the delay. Traffic was excellent, so I made it to Stormback very quickly. Excellente. So the reason I'm doing this little hangout is I actually, let me mute myself in the other. Ugh. There we go. Had to mute myself in my other ear. But I was going through, let me do a screen share, but let me do it so that no trolls can get the link to this hangout. You can just tap F11, which hides the URL at the top. Share my screen. Okay, now I'm sharing my screen. So the video that I was doing about, that's actually 79% done rendering. I figured, hey, why don't I just do this live, right? Because it's a lot more work involved trying to put the audio and video together, and then render it, then upload it. So this is much easier because all I have to do is talk. But if I screw up, I can't edit it out. So oh hell, well, it's a whole lot easier, right? So the reason I'm doing this is because if you're not used to the YouTube creator side of things, you can go into your community tab and look at your comments, and you get these held for review comments, which it says there's 65 of them, but they can't load. Now there was like 150 of them or so earlier today, and I went through them, but you can hit try again, and sometimes there it'll load. Now, usually what you get, and this just disappeared, is you get an option to see how, like, you can check this one, check that one, check this one. There was earlier this morning an option to select all and then either approve or remove all, anything that you have selected. But unfortunately, Google is just, YouTube is just stupid on this. And sometimes I find that the same thing with likely spam. So click on that tab. Couldn't load comments. Try again. Usually you have to do this one 5 times. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 times this time it should work. Yep. And of course the select all and add or allow or remove all is gone, so you can show more. And so what I wanted to do was first point out, I noticed a lot of people saying, hey, you're deleting my comments from your videos, why are you doing that? And I'm not. It's just coming into these likely spam filters. Now the only time that I'll delete comments is if I see it and someone's just being, totally vicious, vulgar, expletives without anything constructive to say. But I do find a lot of interesting stuff in these likely spams, and whenever I can, I just approve the stuff. So I figured I'd read through a few of these, but before I do, let me just check the live chat. So make sure coming through loud and clear. The more I'll use YouTube. Okay, well, it looks like I'm coming through anyway. It looks like we've got a few people watching. Yes, Globebusters is still on at 3 o'clock Eastern, so that's in about 2 hours. But like I said, I was doing a video on this topic here, and I was like, what the hell? I'll just live stream it because it's easier. And you get a lot of really great arguments like this one first from Fins and Racks Outdoors. Flat tards are either one of two things. One, deluded, useful idiots that had their search for the truth. Oh, and by the way, he's shouting all of this. Search for the truth derailed in its infancy. That makes absolutely no sense. But hopefully you guys are seeing my screen, right? Yeah, it looks like it. Okay, so the Bloody Truth says Coriolis effect, question. It either exists or it doesn't. You can't have both. We're taught about the Coriolis effect in school. Goodness, it's another book. We are shown a short video of two people standing at opposite sides of a merry-go-round. One person throws the ball straight to the other person, and the other person is already past the point of where they were. The ball cannot be caught because the merry-go-round keeps spinning, and the ball now free of the Earth's rotation still goes straight. This teaches us that the Earth moves under objects that are detached from the Earth's surface. Simple and understandable. We are taught, and let's highlight this, the Earth moves under objects that are detached from the Earth's surface. So let's just keep that in mind. Simple and understandable. Yes, indeed it is. We're taught that it applies to everything. It would have to. It cannot be a selective effect. If we can catch a flight from east to west with the Earth's rotation as we're taught, then we would never make it to our destination. Oh, great. So this guy's agreeing with me. No wonder he makes so much sense. Yeah. So the Coriolis effect definitely does exist, like in terms of the merry-go-round, but it is not the cause of rotational, the counter-rotation of typhoons and hurricanes north or south of the equator, because the Earth isn't spinning. The counter-rotation of cyclonic forces seems to have more to do with the sun perturbing and creating sort of a high-pressure system in its wake, causing the liquid-like atmosphere to rotate without getting too much into the physics of it. It causes the liquid-like atmosphere to rotate on either side of it in opposite rotational directions. So I'm not sure why. Oh, and see, this one here isn't even that we were all derailed as infants for sure about the whole globe Earth, spinning ball Earth that we supposedly live on. We were fooled as infants, and now that we're adults and we've been introduced to this topic and people have begun skeptically scrutinizing the hypothetical spherical Earth, we're coming up with consistent results that show the Earth has no curvature or axial rotation, so it couldn't be a spinning ball. Going back to the comment, 2, agent provocateurs or perpetrators of the COINTEL PSYOP that emerged in the rings of the Pentagon when the deep state needed a quick Band-Aid solution to stem the growing tide of wisdom and truth-seeking people who were keenly aware of their oh my goodness, he wrote a book. Okay, so I don't know if I'm going to read all that. Like, how would I ever find the time? And like, you just breeze through it. Terminal brain cancer, stupid. Metaphysically stupid. Oh, and by the way, the reason why this one would have been filtered out is because stupid. Yeah, you can't put stupid on my comments in your video, on my video. Sorry. It's to filter out people like this. Stupid, stupidity, stupid. I mean, it's every other word. Stupid. If you counted all the stupids in here, there's another one, another one, another one, another one. See, this is why and people ask me, like, why would you filter out people who say stupid? It's because of this. There's literally, it's every other word. If you can't make a sentence or an argument for or against the shape of the earth without using the word stupid, then your comment really doesn't belong on my channel. But you know what? I'll allow it just to show people how stupid you are. Right. So the bloody truth says Coriolis effect, question, question, question.